12 minutes. All it took was 12 minutes to convert a thrilling semi-final of a World Cup
Throws wide, he's safe behind. Excellent running. South Africa still in this match.
into the greatest farce ever to be enacted in cricket. To go from 22 runs in 13 balls to 22 in 7 to finally 22 in 1 ball without a single ball being played. Cricket was being laughed at. And what truly pisses me off is that all of this could have been avoided. But they didn't. Because of money. This is the story of the day. Greed killed cricket. So our story begins late in 1991. South Africa had just come out of its 22-year exile from cricket due to its apartheid laws and was slowly beginning to regain its cricketing presence. Still, the chances of them playing in the upcoming World Cup to be held in Australia and New Zealand seemed minimal.
It was something that we could only dream about. Being part of that very first ICC World Cup in '92 and going to Australia and New Zealand was something immense.
Firstly, because the time frame was too small, but more importantly, because apartheid laws were still not repealed in South Africa. For those of you who may not know, apartheid laws were a series of laws and legislations that were passed to segregate and discriminate against blacks, mixed races, and people of Pakistani and Indian origins. They couldn't marry white people, they couldn't vote, and even forced to live in designated areas.
For not often appreciated in Britain is the fact that before the diamond and gold industries started the influx of coloured labour, South Africa was a white man's country. There, the white man is the native, not the black.
Still, the African National Congress, the party led by Nelson Mandela, had lobbied that South Africa be allowed into the World Cup. And the ICC agreed on one condition. They wanted a positive outcome on the referendum to end apartheid. It was a referendum in which 2.8 million white South Africans were going to determine the future of 22 million people of other races. The problem was that this referendum was to take place during the World Cup tournament. So a compromise was reached. South Africa would play in the World Cup, but they would be sent back mid-tournament if the referendum didn't succeed.
The fact that there was a referendum going on in South Africa, so we were not yet a democracy, because we were told as a team that if the referendum is no, we'll be ejected from the tournament. It was halfway through the tournament.
So, 22 years of cricket exile and possibly the last few games they will ever get to play on an international stage. Absolutely no pressure, right?
It was that this could be our last game. We could have to go back home. So we just kind of played and enjoyed every single game.
They defeated the defending champions Australia in the opening match, and amidst glorious runouts and breathtaking knocks, South Africa, against all odds, had made it to the semi-finals. But whether they actually got to play the semi-finals was to be decided in the referendum to be voted just before the semis. And in that referendum, 68.72% people had said yes, apartheid had ended and the country was reborn.
Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
The stage was set for the South African cricket team to win it all and bring it home as the perfect gift for the inauguration of this new South Africa. And so started the match.
Sydney Cricket Ground, the venue for England's semi-final against South Africa.
South Africa won the toss, and in a shock to English players, commentators and crowds, decided to ball first. I know what you're thinking. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal was that there was a miraculous rule figured out by some genius to deal with rain interruptions. It was called the rain rule. Now, according to the rule, in case of rain, the least productive overs from the side batting first were to be removed. So for example, if you played 10 maidens in the first 50 overs and then rain reduced the chase to 40 overs, then now, as the least productive overs would be those 10 maidens where no run was scored, the target would remain unchanged. Throughout this World Cup, teams had met with tragedy after tragedy after tragedy under this rule. The most absurd one was when England bowled out Pakistan for 74. That means they had 50 overs to score 74. But it rained for 3 hours. And according to the new rule, England now had to score 64 in 16 overs. Well, at least that match was washed away. But there were many such incidences where this rule had practically destroyed games. It was like a plague to be avoided at all cost. And the South African captain, winning the toss, decided to take it on. When asked for the reason,
Kepler not too worried about the rain?
Yeah, it is a calculated risk. But
well, the idea behind this calculated risk was that they had won all the 3 games when they chased, whereas they had lost 3 out of 5 when they were batting first. England, on the other hand, had won 3 out of 4 games while chasing, including one against South Africa themselves. So, South Africa decided to test their luck, especially since they would be helped by another newly minted genius level rule, the time restriction. Now in 1992, the co-host Australia was one of the most commercialized countries when it comes to cricket. And because of the profit that the organizers were earning through broadcasting rights, they had given up complete control over the match timings. So, in essence, a channel on a TV was gonna dictate how long a match could go for. If they said that an inning should end by this time, then it should. Well, if you can't, the inning is over either ways.
The clock's just moved to 6:10 on the main scoreboard, so if that is a tactic, it's worked very well for South Africa.
That's a rule that has to be changed for the next World Cup. You can't have a side only receiving 46 overs in a lot of time.
And that's exactly what the South Africans did. By the time the allotted hours were done, only 45 overs were bowled. But the innings
52.
was over.
And the players coming off the ground after 45 overs. That's a disappointing aspect. They only received 45 overs.
Now do understand here, the organizers at any point could have interfered with this and dealt with the financial complications to extend the time. But that costs money. And how can a trivial semi-final of a World Cup stand in the way of money? Right? So, the English team was deprived of its log overs. And South Africa just had to chase 253 in 45 overs to win. But the English team wasn't going to take this lying down. Enraged by the sheer absurdity of these rules, they went on full offensive. Wicket after wicket, very tight bowling, they were determined to make each and every ball count. And finally, when the dust settled, South Africa was left reeling on 131 for 4 in 27 overs. Still, standing in front of this enraged players were players whose careers had got a new lease on life. If they had to go down, they would go down swinging. And swing they did. First, Jonty Rhodes played an electrifying 47 runs of 31 balls, which was then followed by Macmillan and Richardson, who scored 25 runs in the next 18 balls. This left only 22 runs required in 13 balls. The match was living up to everything cricket stood for. Two teams hell-bent on leaving everything in the field. And then it started raining.
And we're coming off. The crowd will roar here at the Sydney Cricket Ground. It's certainly quite steady. A very difficult situation for the umpires. It's getting heavier by the second.
As the South African players slowly ambled back to the pavilion, seemingly hoping that they could just stay there, just for some more time. The whole world was glued to their TVs, waiting with bated breath, hoping that all the players could come back out again, hoping that they could just start exactly where they left off. A match like this deserved to be decided on the field, didn't it?
Not one person's going to leave the Sydney Cricket Ground.
But the broadcasting channel had other ideas. They had a deadline to follow, The match had to end by 10:10 p.m. by hook or by crook. The thing is, the competition rules had actually allowed for a reserve day. And even though this situation didn't completely fit the norms, seeing the absurdity of this flawed rule, they could have appealed and tried to make an exception. But the host broadcasters were adamant. The match had to be finished on that day itself.
It's quite ludicrous that the captain of a team in the semi-finals should have to worry about such an imponderable. Can one forgive those that invented these rules for spoiling a world event?
And so it was that the rain rule was applied. And the least productive overs for England, that means 2 brilliant maiden overs by Pringle, would now come back and hurt them. And as if enacting a damn comedy, even this information was relayed incorrectly. The crowds and players were told that they still had 7 balls left. The South African players walked into the field to meet this difficult but not impossible goal. And just then, they were informed that they now only had 1 ball. 1 ball to score 22 runs.
They've changed it to say that there is only 1 ball remaining, although the official announcement was made just a moment ago that there are 7 balls remaining.
The crowds went into an uproar. The South African batsmen were in utter disbelief. Even the English captain was arguing about the sheer stupidity of the situation. But none of that mattered. The decision had been made. Amid the crowd's jeers, a dejected Macmillan played the last ball, and the disheartened South Africans, with an equally disappointed English players, started walking back to the pavilion. The clock behind them stood still at 10:08, 2 minutes away from the scheduled deadline. The deadline had been followed, but cricket had died. Still, in an outstanding show of sportsmanship, the entire South African team had come out to shake hands with the English players. And for the sheer love showered on them throughout this match and the tournament, they did a lap of honor for the crowd. They were disappointed, yes, but rules were rules, they said. Yes, rules were rules. But these were rules made by a broadcasting company. A dream of a resurgent cricketing power had stopped in its tracks, just so that a channel can earn some more money. This was the story then of the day cricket was killed at the hands of greed.